everybody, and you're very welcome to the latest episode of the South Tip Arts Podcast. This week I was delighted to pay a visit to artist Austin McQuinn at his studio in the beautiful foothills of Slievenamon here in Tipperary. This September, Austin's show Hypercarbon will show at the Source Art Centre in Thurles. In Hypercarbon, Austin uses a range of carbon-based materials including Chinese ink, bog oak, bog deal and his own body to make new work for this exhibition. The intense energy in the work expresses a hypersensitivity to these materials, forging connections between the molecular and the cosmological. This will be Austin's first solo exhibition in Tipperary, where he's been living for 20 years and was specially commissioned by Brendan at the Source Art Centre in Thurles. The exhibition starts on Saturday the 12th of September and runs until the 17th of October 2020, with the official launch taking place on Saturday the 12th at 2 p.m. in the gallery. The opening hours there are 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and they're also open 2 to 5 p.m. on Saturdays. And you can get more information at www.thesourceartcentre.ie. Fabulous. My first question would be like, if I was from Kerry, I'd be living in Kerry. Do you know? What would take you to this part of the world? Or how did you discover it? Because it is lovely here. Like, there's no denying that. But
I have my friend Pat Luby, the artist.
Oh yes,
Luby,
yeah. No, well.
Credit totally.
Yeah.
Pat had just moved back here, really, and I was living in Dublin, and I'd left Kerry. I've never lived there really.
Right.
Went away to school actually in Australia, in Tipperary.
Okay, right. Yeah.
And never thought I'd be moving back to Tipperary. I thought there was nothing here.
Yeah.
Coming from Kerry, there's nothing. There's no mountains as far as I was concerned.
Yeah,
as a child.
There are only hills.
So I went to college in Cork, moved to Dublin, good few years there. And then I was in economic exile, I think, really.
Right.
It was just before the boom, the Tiger arrived. And I was, circumstances were changing in Dublin. I was in flux, I was 30. And Pat, as I say, had moved here and I was visiting. And I really needed somewhere to live.
Yeah.
And we came out here to the mountain for a walk, and she jokingly said, "What about that little place? This small house here." I said, "Pull over," and I had a look around. I said, "Yeah, do me for a year. Like all an artist needs is a shed.
That's all, really. Yeah.
I just wanted a shed,
yeah,
and a car.
Your wants are basic, yeah.
Because the idea of coming here for me, a lot of it was to go
after
away.
The city as well, and
But I started doing a lot of exchanges and residencies, and so if I had a place, someone from New York, I'd like to come to Ireland,
and you could get to go
leave.
to New York, yeah.
As long as I had a shed to put everything into.
Yeah.
So that's actually what happened. I did a few exchanges like that.
Kind of the best of both worlds, because it means that you get your little escape sometimes, or you get to have that city experience and then just come back.
Yeah, and then you never want to leave. Once April comes, I'm here. Yeah, you earn it for the winter, and winter is the time to go to the city.
Yeah.
And once summer comes, I just want to be here.
Oh, imagine fairly dark here.
It's a little harder. It's dark at 3:30, and it's but then in the summer it's just bright all the time, and also I suppose, to be honest, it's warmer generally, and the summer is also always a very productive time in the studio because it's warmer and you can be outside and you have very long days and not a lot. So, but going back, so Pat introduced me to Featherton. We're very close friends and as artists as well, of course, and good support for each other. So. And my other friend Michael Byrne, who is just the other side of the mountain. Yeah. So there were artists here.
Nice little community.
And close to Kilkenny and the Art Centre in Tipperary and Clonmel, but I was quite involved in the Butler Gallery as well. And so you form a new network, I suppose, wherever you go.
Yeah.
But there's just more of a distance. And that was really a good thing for me, because I feel it's only when I left Dublin that I really started making my own work, I would say, where it didn't really matter what I did. I was just in my workshop and
in your element.
There was no openings and nobody asking me what I was doing and nobody bothering. So there's a lot of new work emerged out of that period. And so there are advantages. I have other artists now who said they give me 1 year.
Yeah?
Said, yeah, there was career suicide. But in fact, it was the best thing I did.
Yeah.
And I was free and had a lot more space to make work I would never have been able to make in a small studio in Mountjoy Square. There was no way, So it was very liberating.
Yeah, I imagine so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it allowed me then to do a lot of travelling, coming and going, but always coming back. Oh, of course. As I say, I started working on a lot of public sculpture work. People might know, local to here might know the Beehive down in Fidan.
Yes.
So that would have been the most local piece to hear. So they were fantastic projects, like being able to make work of that scale, a ton of bronze and having things lifted off the back of lorries. And I could never do that. Yeah. And I never felt it strayed too much from my studio practice. I was always able to kind of feel they were commissioned works, but a lot of people might feel there's compromise involved in that.
Yeah.
I never really felt that.
Yeah.
I was lucky and that I really felt it was my own. It was coming out of my own practice very much. And so that, I was fortunate to have some of those jobs. So over that 10 years, I suppose, that kind of work and some teaching, which I've always done and loved, that kept the studio going. So I was always able to keep a studio going, keep the practice going.
Yeah.
I've been very lucky that way.
And the performative element always has been with you, has it, from day one? Or was
No, not at all. Yeah. No. I would have seen really no performance in college. It was never even talked about.
Right, okay.
No. And it was something I would have started to... It was other artists, I suppose, that I got to know that would have woken up something in me.
Yeah.
And... it's been a very important part of my practice, for sure. It kind of brings a great energy, and to me it's making an image. It's the same as doing a drawing, but it's alive. Yeah. And there's no other way of making that image except to do it in this way. There's no other way. You cannot. Nobody else can do it. It can be durational. Sometimes it's 5 hours. Sometimes it's 20 minutes. It depends on the piece and the image that I feel I have to make. Okay. There's only one way of doing it. Yeah. Also, I had a show there in Triskel in Cork 2 years ago. And so I just felt it. I find it extremely hard to do. I have no training in performance. I just, admire and look on. Yeah. People I really admire, like Bernadette Cotter in Cork, was a huge influence on me. And... it can bring everything together, I think, in an exhibition. So, say for that exhibition in Cork was sculpture and painting, but this live work everything kind of came together in that. And anyone who was there participates in that moment and gives me all the energy I need to do that. It was very energetic, kind of like a dance piece, really. Right. And it created an event for all the people that were there, just at that moment. It was not about it being recorded or anything. Yeah. It was just,
like a happening.
Let's share this. Yeah. And I was, was full of energy. So that energy has continued in a way into this new work. It's very much the themes I've been working on, like these two paintings here, paintings like of swarms. Yeah. So I've been working on this swarming idea for the last year or two. They look very energetic, but actually they're painstaking in how I make them. They're just thousands and thousands of little tiny dots.
Every single,
But I make them in just one go, really. Once you start, you can't stop. Yeah. Because
it's like
the
a
ink
swarm,
is
the
live.
way it carries itself.
It has its own movement. And it's whatever I'm feeling that evening or that morning, whatever. And so it just, once I begin, I tend to just keep going. Yeah, there's a lot of build-up and working up to that point. So energy is a very strong element for me now. I suppose maybe I have less of it. I'm getting older. I don't know, but
it's to be discerning about how you spend it, don't you? Yeah.
But truly, I think it is a core element for me now. And where are you going to put your energy? What are you going to put your energy into? How passive or active are you going to be in the world? I suppose getting older, maybe you're aware of a lot of people are leaving also, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm very aware of the force of energy and life force that is so fragile and so momentary and so of now.
But they also say that energy doesn't die, don't they? So it just changes form, or
I think so.
You know, I think so too.
I think it's the process of transformation.
Yeah.
And these new paintings here are less energetic in that way, but they have the same.
They look super painstaking as well in their detail.
And as well, it's about they carry an awful lot of the moment of when they're made. Now, you could maybe say that about any painting. But I suppose I'm trying to bring it out as an element that I see as... Like when I'm standing in front of a Monet, it's exciting to be so close to the last paint mark that he made. And I think that's part of the magic of art.
Absolutely,
You know, is that you really are feeling close to the artist in a way and their energy. I was looking at drawings recently of Alice Maher, another Tipperary artist. We're good friends, and she had sent me some drawings on just by email, you know, that new work she was working on to look at. We were just showing her new work, and I said, I'd seen them. I felt I'd seen them just on my phone or on my laptop. When I saw them in reality, I to stand in front of them, and they were so tentative, and you just saw that you could just feel she was right there, so close to the making of the work. And it was so alive in the way it could never be on a screen, you know. And I think a lot of people have found with this during lockdown that, I don't think I looked at one virtual exhibition. I really had no interest in it. I don't think artists really did. The loss was looking at the real thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
We could look at that any time. It suddenly became so important to look at work. But certainly what became clearer, I think, is liveness and being with art forms, let's say, music or theatre, whichever. But it affected anything that's extra to basic living, like mass, it affected devotion, affected very important, feelings and emotions that are housed in the body, really, and the body needs, to move in these spaces. It can't be all in the mind and all in your eyes. That's not how we experience the world.
Yeah.
Or the tea.
So this exhibition, this Hypercarbon.
Yes.
Explain a little bit about the title first, because it has its own connotations in my mind about. I know I expect to see loads of drawing, I think.
Yeah.
And kind of mark making comes to my mind and things like that. And I'm looking at the paintings on the wall here. Are they paintings or are they... There's ink in there, is there?
They are ink.
Ink.
Yes.
All ink.
All ink.
Yeah.
Well, the Hypercarbon title is completely made up word, and it comes from two words that I've been playing with.
Yeah.
Hyper being
your
hyper energy. It's used in that way, but it's broad term for anything that is more than extra to what is needed. Yeah. Extra to, not superfluous to, just more than.
Extra,
Like a hyper awareness or hyper. And then it extends into digital or virtual living where things are hyper textualized or hyper manifested in some hyper way. And this series I'm calling Hyperspace.
Hyperspace.
So hyperspace, in my understanding, is where you can go between two places. You can be in two places not at the one time, but you can easily transfer between two places. And there's a new video game. It's just released, which I didn't know about, called Hyperspace. So it's a virtual reality game, I didn't know that, but I'm totally open to connecting to those elements as well that are so current.
When you said hyperspace there, because I didn't know what they were called, all of a sudden I get the sense of like space-time continuums and all that kind of stuff, and the way time weaves and, timelines and I'm seeing all that now,
Good.
just from the title. So it's like...
And they're hyperscapes, so they're kind of mountain-like. To me, the mountain has been a recurring theme. When I look now, as Brendan asked me to look, at what I'm doing and to think about where I am.
Yeah.
And it's true. Like right through from the first show, I would say, certainly the first show I made from here had a lot of mountain aspects. So it was in the project in Dublin. There was one huge painting of a white mountain.
Right.
And I'd say in all those installations and plaster casts and so on, there's always been this shape that I return to, which can be a lump of manure.
Yeah.
Or,
it could be so many things.
The
it's
mountain
like a breast or something,
or waste.
Yeah.
Or
and then all the stories that go along with that place. It's very, very special.
Do you mean here in Slievenamon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a kind of a mystical place.
Yeah, and I think people hold that kind of magical or mythical thing very deeply locally, but you don't need to talk about it, but we all know that there's something up there. Under those rocks.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I would say I seek it out as well. Even here on Slievenamon, there's a holy year cross.
Yeah, I just saw that signpost. I didn't know there was.
So there's crosses on a lot of mountains in Ireland. So I'm very interested in this idea of devotion as well, to place and to objects. And so how a place or a mountain indeed itself, like Croagh-Patrick, and the notion of pilgrimage. And the last couple of years I've done a lot of travelling in Greece and went to Israel and Palestine and places of great pilgrimage and devotion. And I was thinking this morning about other significant trips. One might have been to Bilbao to see the Guggenheim there when it opened. And I was thinking that was like, I'm very interested in medieval imagery and art as well. And icons, you see, I'm always looking at icons. At the moment, icons have become very important.
Okay.
But this idea of pilgrimage, and so myself and my buddy David went to Bilbao. It's not that far from Santiago de Compostela, and it had those elements for me, like that. These museums are the new cathedrals, in our period, in our time, So, and people need to congregate for meaning.
Yeah.
And I suppose something like Croagh-Patrick, or going to a site like the burial place of the Virgin outside the walls of Jerusalem.
Right.
This is down, you go down 100 steps into a cave. It's the most amazing place. It's not about whether she lived or not, or whether she's buried there. For me, it was about the amount of devotional energy and concentration that was in the space and brought by all those people and pilgrims. And the same right here on Slievenamon. Now in August, one of these days, I think, is traditionally the Mass. And everybody walks up, not up by me here, just over by the other side of Killustig. And that's that ritual. That's generational and maybe had its origins before, had origins
maybe it did,
even further back. So it's not really about what is being venerated, it's the act. And the concentration that goes into, say, these Byzantine icons, or the carving of some tiny piece of stone. This is the kind of thing that interests me. So it's from the macro to the micro, so it's all the same to me. And there is a sort of an not ecological, but an ecology that I'm trying to work on in this series of work, which is, the last exhibition, there was a lot of bat imagery, and I was very interested in bats. Because they're living here in my house in the attic.
I bet you've loads,
So there's this sort of cycle that I'm identifying, which is where the horses pass by, the manure is there, flies emerge from this, the bats eat this, and the bats then clean the air and they animate my world. And this is the ecology of the mountain. And just these four elements. So this is where the swarms come in. So it's this going from swarms to mounds of things, including my own mass. So, like there's the other things that you're identifying are there, but also to me there's like tissue or muscle mass. When you would see a diagram of muscle.
Of muscle tendons and all
tendons,
that
there's that element for me. So, I mean, it would be glad I can't explain them completely to you,
Yeah,
because then
yeah.
there wouldn't be any point in making them.
And are they the same as
But
the swan
these are
ones in
elements.
that when you start that one, you have to finish that one? Or can you...
Really, yes.
Yeah.
I prepare the ground, there's like these stains and marks and so on, so I sort of flood they're on canvas, and I flood the canvas with inks and various kinds, and wipe it back, put ink back on it and wipe it back and scrape it back until I'm kind of happy that this is a surface that's ready to go.
Right.
And then I'm perched here on my stool and the work is done flat. And then I just have to go.
Do you find that you just zone out?
Yeah, it's work. It's not really zoned out, actually. I think...
well, I zoned out is the wrong word.
No, I know what you mean.
It assumes that you're not concentrating or something, but you know what I mean? That you're in it almost.
You have to stay with it.
Yeah.
You have to stay with the problem. There's a pleasure in when it's finished, I suppose.
Finished, yeah. And do you
But it's work.
Do you have trouble then going, oh, this is finished, leave it alone? Or...
I do.
Yeah, like everybody. It's like...
I have to be really careful.
Yeah.
Yeah, because with these inks, right, it's not like painting. You'll see over on that table there is a mound of lovely oil paints, which I thought I was going to be doing.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
And with oil paint, it's a very forgiving medium. And I trained as a painter, that's what I did before I made any sculpture. Yeah. But with the ink, you can make a mistake.
No.
You cannot actually. There can't be a drop.
Yeah, because it would seep through, wouldn't it? You're into your... And then
permanent.
how do you get rid of that? It's gone. You don't. Yeah.
So it's very, very controlled.
So every mark you make is
the mark.
Yeah.
So when you finish, when you're asking that, try to trust that you'll just know. It will tell you.
Yeah.
And in fairness, this is a series of 9 of these. And there was one that didn't work out. And it was because I left it and came back to it.
Okay.
I said, oh, well, now I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It was maybe number 4. I said, I can go and to Clonmel and, they came back and I said, I'll pick that up later. No, disaster. And I couldn't get back to it. And then I painted it black. It was awful. Yeah. So I learned my lesson.
So you'll just stay with that in one sitting until it's
as much as I can.
Yeah.
As much as I can. And this ink, so as I said, I was all set up. COVID happened. I was already working. It was like, hey, this is great, and but there was a massive clear out and the new tires on the trailer, and I was over and back to the dump, and the place was immaculate. Yeah, and I was all ready to go. With the next phase, I had been painting away, but it just stopped. Yeah, and I had been working with inks on paper. I did when I was doing these swarm works. I did a day's workshop with Karen Colbert.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Sumier.
Yes.
Calligraphy.
A lovely day, I'd say. Now I've
Japanese
seen it
ink painting
from the outside.
It was great. She's artist herself, of course, and a wonderful teacher. And I was kind of captivated by the material. And she was explaining, how the ink was made, and this really captured my imagination. I think I was working a lot with the bats still at the time, and bat imagery. Yeah. And she says that this real Chinese ink it's thousands of years, of course, they've been working on perfecting this process where they burn pine wood in a cave. Right. And it's the soot from the cave, from the fire that's on the roof of the cave. Yeah. They scrape that off and mix it with a little animal glue or resin from the pine tree itself and form this little block of ink. Right. Okay. So to me this was pure poetry, of course. Yeah. So that activity alone, like spending your time scraping the soot off the cave to make a simple painting of a bamboo or something. Yeah. So all the poetics were really up my street. Yeah. And also this sense of the materiality of it, like the intensity of that action, to burn the wood and to work then on paper that's also made of wood. So this hypercarbon idea comes from there, where things are brought to the absolute extreme or extent of themselves, the nth degree of something. And so that's where I'm sort of very limited in my materials. Like, so the canvas, the inks, that's it.
Were you tempted to try and create the ink?
No, I haven't. I haven't been that diligent.
Yeah.
But
can you buy it?
I don't have any. You can buy the little block,
yeah,
and you can buy all these here.
Yeah.
These are, well, this is very nice Chinese ink that Pat got me actually in the Chester Beatty in Dublin, which is a great place for looking at ink drawings. Of course, I was there recently. And these are a lot of acrylic inks, and this is made from walnut, beautiful drawing ink, which I love.
It's a whole new world of ink then. Was ink something you'd explored before, or was this brand new to you? Yeah, yeah, fantastic.
No, and very often that happens, Emer, I think, and I certainly often encourage artists, friend, or I've learned that myself, or certainly with students, where if you're stuck, change your material.
Yeah.
Or else change the size. Yeah. So if you've been working very large, go small. And do use something you've never used before. Yeah. And as I say, that's what happens with this. This work just demanded a new material for me to, as I say, take to some kind of nth degree of something. So there, the painting work. So there's this other element now for the show in Thurles, and going back to our bog conversation. Yeah. I had started working with my father. He's worked with me on almost all the exhibitions, really, helping me in one way or another. Yeah. But this time we were rooting around in his sheds, and he had been working. He's always been very creative as well, and he had been about 10 or 15 years ago had started working with bog oak.
Okay, yeah.
He'd done a course in that, and he was out in the garage with the chisels, and the whole thing was going. And I couldn't even look at it at the time. Yeah. Just thought, this is the anathema of art for me, because of course the tradition is that you see an animal, very often in the piece of bog oak,
and
right?
itself,
And so is it a swan or a dragon or this kind of thing? I was thinking, no, it's just what it is. It's just. It's enough to be a piece of wood that's 6,000 years old, and it seems so alive. Mm. So I was kind of disregarding of that at the time, Then more recently I started to look again. And I suppose I was thinking of Thurles and Littleton and bog life and going back to the sources of things and my own source of that would have been a very strong and powerful part of my childhood. Yeah. Was the time we spent in the bog. A lot of the things that came out of there. Yeah. And I suppose to be very aware of Heaney's bog work, bog poems, bog person poems. And but I put all those to one side as sort of a nostalgic, romance. But when Terence is my father's name, when he produced these, I said, I want to see those again. What have you been doing with them? And he said, well, he had left them at a certain point, Right. So he had these two very large ones here, these big lumps, and he had brought them to a certain point, and then there was others, and we were poking around, found various pieces, and so I just said, well, let's work collaboratively on this, and make a piece together. Oh. So he would bring them to a certain point, which I couldn't do because it's a certain technique with chisels and sanders, and to bring them down to a kind of take off all the old bark and so on. And so he's bringing them to a certain point of finish, and then he's allowing me to take them and bring them to the next phase. Yeah. So what I'm doing is, this is pine. Now there's deal, bog deal, which we would know, which is pine, and there's bog oak. But for this show, I'm just using the deal, the pine, because the pine, as I said, was what the Chinese burnt to make the ink, and I'm returning that, and I'm sort of
ink on this.
This is smeared with the Chinese ink, and then I polish it up.
It's lovely finish, isn't it?
It's like returning the pine. Yeah. So it's just parts of this are done like this, and the others are just polished, but not as highly polished as they would be in that traditional. I'm sure there's plenty of people in North Tipperary and in around Thurles who are working with bog oak, but I'm bog deal, but I'm kind of doing something a bit different with them. Just presenting it in a different way. Yes. Yeah. And also it is this collaborative work with myself and Tara. And he, of course, knows where all these pieces came from and what bogs they were dragged out of.
Yeah, which is brilliant.
And they speak, of something ancient.
As well,
that still has energy, I think.
Yes, absolutely.
And of course, people are interested in bog, but they choose this kind of material. They're choosing them for their kind of liveness, how alive they look, for the musculature, of the timber, because these trees were not dead when they were preserved. They were still alive. It seems that they fell or were fallen into the bog grew up around them. So they have a lot of liveness still in them as material for me, a lot of energy. So we're trying to pull that energy out of them, and I have them here in the studio around all the time, so they're kind of giving off, they're settling in here, giving off a lot. So then when the pandemic happened, we said, how are we going to do this? So we've been working at a distance, because he's in Kerry and I'm in Tipperary, and so I wasn't able to go and see what he'd been doing. And so the first opportunity when the borders were lifted, I was down and came back with a carload of hog oak from Tara, because of course he had all this time. He's a very busy man, but he suddenly had time to work on this. So there's some of these pieces here as well, kind of coming out of the two wall pieces. So there's a doubling in some of the works, because there's two of us. There's like two twin pieces.
Okay,
There was going to be a lot of other elements. I think even it's listed on what I gave Brendan, that there's going to be quartz and beeswax and all kinds of other materials. But they're all there, but everything is just reduced all the time, down. And it's such an amazing venue. It's such a beautiful gallery.
It is a lovely gallery.
But you're very exposed there.
Yes.
Because there's nowhere to hide. Those fabulous high walls and a beautiful floor. And Brendan has been amazing. Because I had to postpone this show, and he's just...
So this isn't the original opening. It was supposed to open earlier, was it?
No. That's another reason he's amazing, is because he just said, no, we'll just stick with the plan.
Yeah.
And okay.
Yeah.
Because I kind of took my foot off the accelerator for a while. I thought, surely now.
You were thinking now this is not happening. Yeah.
But no. And she said, no, we'll stay with the plan. Yeah. And sure enough, we're opening.
That's great, but you know what? You've something to kind of work towards then as well. With all this going on the outside, it's nice to have a focus.
Yeah. I found it hard.
The beginning, I think, was hard for a lot of people.
Very strange. I suppose I was in this very heightened state of working, so you're very very open, to the world, and you're just feeling it more. I certainly do. And everything just seemed to be falling asunder, and it was hard to just come into the studio
and just carry on like as if nothing was happening, sort of.
And it was, so much was happening apart from pandemic. It was collapse of politics, collapse of everything. It was frightening. It still is, but I think it's just now I just think it's a period of phenomenal change and turbulence. There's always been change, just because we here in our privileged West who haven't seen war for a long time.
That's quite true.
We've been very fortunate.
I think we all have to reassess a little bit about what we need. And
I think the hardest thing for me was the realisation about 3 or 4 months in was that this is permanent. It's not like this is for the summer. Then we go back. There is no going back. But there isn't any going back anyway.
No,
it just brought that up for me, I suppose.
There never is.
Being here in the studio and kind of so invested in this idea of in the moment and the now, and it's never been more
prominent, I suppose, in your
strong, that sense of, it was always thus. There is no going. I'm looking back to the 14th century, but there's no going back. No. And so, as I say, I completely believe in the next generation. I think they're fantastic, and what they're doing already is so interesting, and it's going to be their world that they're going to create.
We'll wrap it up, I think, Austin, because it can't be that long. Thanks a million for having me. It's absolutely fabulous. You're very lucky to live where you do, and
I know.
And the work looks amazing.
Thank
really
you.
Looking forward to seeing it in the stores in September. So we'll catch up with you then. So thanks a million.
I'll see you in the Art Centre someday.
Do.
Yeah.
And thanks to Austin again for having me. We had a great chat about all the things he's got going on at the moment, as well as Hypercarbon. He's also curating a major show for Limerick City Art Gallery, which is called As Kingfishers Catch Fire, Animals and Imagination. In a total takeover of all the spaces of Limerick City Gallery of Art, the exhibition asks how we can engage culturally as conscious planetary creatures within the condition of being alive together now. It's a group show featuring a host of international artists as well as some more familiar names. And you can find out more about that at limerick.gallery.ie. If you'd like to get in touch with the podcast, the email address is southtippartspodcast@gmail.com. That's southtippartspodcast@gmail.com. Well, that's it for another episode of the South Tip Arts Podcast, which has been made possible by Creative Ireland, so we thank them for their support. Talk to you all again next time.